a really good exercise for just trying to figure out your voice and look at your break. Just try and thin it a little bit at the point where it gets harder and work it out. Try to figure out what vowel you want best. So I'm changing it from E to N and back to E. And the more and more I work this round and round and round, the more and more I'm thinking of flowing and breathing right through it. I'm supplying air the whole way. I'm just trying to figure out, where does my voice want me to swap? Where does it want me to change over? I'm really listening to it and not trying to force. Like if I force it, there's a spot where I want to swap from head to chest. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to introduce more chest into the head part, and I'm trying to introduce more head into the chest. So I'm blending the two together and mixing these two registers. Because when people say the mixed voice, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as the actual mixed voice. What you're doing is you're just mixing the other two registers. You're mixing head and chest, because chest voice is the thyroarytenoid dominant sound, and head is a cricothyroid dominant sound. So what you're trying to do is just try and blend the two together, and you're already doing it. You are. If you weren't, you would have it really bottoming out or topping out at like, by going anywhere near your break, you're already bringing in a little bit of the other register. And by doing exercises like by doing exercises like and trying to find out that spot, you're just trying to tell the voice where it wants to swap, trying to figure out where is the one, not only where do I want to swap, to where am I going to tell it to swap. And then once I've learned exactly what my voice wants to do, slowly but surely I can start like really strengthening those bits. But until I have that knowledge, until I've taken the time to really explore my voice, it's not going to work. It's not going to be there. And you can't take this as a cue from other singers. You can't just copy. If you copy other singers, what you'll end up with is just, you'll end up just tiring your voice out. You won't understand exactly what your voice wants. And everyone's voice is a little bit different. There are massive similarities between voices. There are things that we can predict. I'll be able to guess when I'm teaching a guy, I'm like, here we are, we're going up to E flat, If the person has quite a low voice, I'd be like, oh, it's D flat we're coming up to. So it's going to start to get a little tougher. And then I can listen to see, are they going to lighten the sound? Or are they going to try and force it through? And that inspires me to think about what the first lessons are going to be about. What the first discussions are going to be about. But then say if it just feels light and easy and they're not pushing, it feels good, and they're getting up to E, and then they start to tighten a little bit, and then F's very tough, then I'm like, okay, this is what these other lessons are going to be about. We're going to have a little bit, your transitions maybe in a different spot. Then I can make guesses about what their top note and chest might be. Again, it's just a guess though. It's just guessing. Because, say 95% of people fall into these sort of brackets of similarities. But not everyone does. There are voices that are just different, There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, normally, if they're different, it's different for a good reason. I know my break, because I'm like bass, when I was first coming up to my break, I had no concept of head voice. No idea. Like, I understood what it was. I understood what it sounded like. And every now and then I would sort of get like a ooh thing that I could do. But I was not at all able to understand like that it was like a separate part of the same thing. It felt like something unachievable, something unattainable, something very far away. So all I did was go hell for leather and double down on chest, just more and more and more and more and more chest as I went up. And I was able to stretch my chest up to like G sharp, you know, never an A. I was never able to hit an A in chest. There were times when I felt like I was, but actually that was the beginning of me mixing, you know, and I was just giving a lot of sob, lots of cry. Because what that cry sensation, that like, that's the CT, that's that cricothyroid. Like I said, that is kind of your head voice. That's stretching the outside of the cord. And the TA, which is chest, that's squeezing the thick part together. You can go from head to chest if you just back off a little bit. But I was always just chest voice, chest voice, chest voice, chest voice, even to the point where it felt like all I could do was that sort of like, sound, you know, the unreachable. And then I did a contract where it totally bottomed out, where I actually, I couldn't do really either. What happened was, it was just loads of vocal fatigue. I was drinking a lot, actually. And I was giving out I wasn't understanding that I really needed maybe a couple of weeks of vocal rest. And it got to the point where literally in the song, like professionally in the contract, I was having to go, the unreachable. And I was just going, star. And I was getting more, star. And I couldn't even grab hold of the sound to make a big sound. Which I'd always find something, and it was only on an E. I think it was maybe even only in an E flat. It was maybe even a D. You know, that my voice had gotten so badly used and I had so little support with it in terms of how to actually use the voice and what to do when it's in this situation, that I just pushed it harder and harder and harder. And if I'd just known to lighten it a bit, the unreachable star, you know, star. You know, it's so easy now. Star and star, star. I feel like I could sing that for days. And even if with the same vocal fatigue, I could probably sing it for days now as well. But if you don't understand sort of what the difference in head and chest is, you can end up sort of leading yourself to squeezing a lot and using a lot of muscularity that's totally unnecessary. So that's why, like, understanding vocal technique it's not just useful in terms of like getting a sound you want. It's useful for the longevity of your voice, for actually being able to problem solve when there's big issues, you know, because they will come along. If you're using your voice day in, day out, and you're having to push it to the edge of what, you know, the sort of sounds that you get asked to do professionally are always sounds that are at the edge of technique. You know, it's very rarely just super safe, super easy, unless you've got this massively fucking huge range. Normally you'll be asked to stuff, and also you'll be asked to sing at the edge of your range because that's what sounds better anyway. Even if you've got this huge range, what you should be doing is singing the very tippy top of it, because it's not the notes you're singing that matter. It's where they sit for you as a person and where emotionally that brings you to a place, because then the audience is with you in that. And if you don't understand how to safely bring yourself to the edges of your technique, to the limits, then you'll just get tired and tired and tired and tired, and it won't work after a while. And trust me, I've been there. So doing these exercises like being able to sort of transition between head to chest without really, well, one, you'll be able to hear the difference, but it's not like it's, you know, I'm not, there's none of that going on. It's very important. And any exercise, any pattern that you want to use, any scale, take it up, warm up your chest, give your head voice a little bit of a warm up as well. I would say get there as soon as possible. I love like gui 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 goo 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 gui gui gui. Give it loads of support, but not, you're not forcing air at it. You're taking air away from it with your support. Pulling your elbows down behind you, using your back. And then it should feel light and easy. You're not having to, Then, after a bit of this stuff, give it a a little bit of vocal fry at the top. You can hear it's starting to get very forward placed in there. It's not and you can see that my soft palate is not all the way closed. It's not all the way up. It's not all the way down. It's allowing for this full head resonance. And gwe, 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 gwe. And if you want to get rid of that Mickey Mousey sound, think about the vowel. Think about relaxing the jaw and making the vowel not so gwe, 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 gwe. Because once it's down here, gwe, 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 a. Sounds nice and chesty. It sounds good. But if I go gwe, 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 the E vowel makes it sound very Mickey Mousey, and it's not a nice sound. And I think the best way around that is looking at vowels. There's certain things, the more and more I strengthen my voice, the more and more you strengthen your voice, the less it'll have that. If you that Mickey Mousiness when you, hello, that Pluto, hello, no, that sort of, I'm not going to say feminine sound, but maybe the older sound, like a sound of someone who's losing their voice a little bit. You don't want to have that. You don't want to sing with that. They're like, gwe, 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 yeah. The more that you relax your jaw and increase that space there in the resonance, the less that sound happens. And that's just the process. And the more that you look at the vowel as well, to avoid, certain vowels will sound bad for certain people and certain vowels will sound good for other people. And it's about knowing your voice. That comes back to these scales going up over the break. If you have those vowels up and over, then you just start to learn a little bit more about your voice. And then you can even start to make bigger decisions. And then you can go to a different teacher, go to a new teacher and ask them the questions that you've always wanted to ask and get the answers to these things and make progress. Don't just keep singing the same old stuff. Good luck. Enjoy that.